After an admittedly mediocre self-titled album, is this new one from Black Veil Brides the one that they need to keep the momentum going and to come back swinging? Let's find out. Welcome to Ray Rono Does Music, where today we're looking at the newest album from Black Veil Brides called Vale. They haven't released an album since 2014, 4 whole years ago, which marks the longest gap in between Black Veil Brides releases, where their first few albums, We Stitch These Wounds, Set the World on Fire, and Wretched and Divine, they came out in relatively quick succession, so it's good to see them sort of take a break. This allowed for a lot of touring, a lot of just general songwriting moments to, not really moments, more like time to sort of maybe refine their craft and bridge off from what a lot of people saw as just sort of a cringy hard rock band, and I thought that this lapse of time would really allow for them to sort of go many steps ahead of what they were from a lot of albums that came out in very fast moments. Back-to-back releases aren't bad for a band whatsoever. In fact, I think a lot of time spent releasing albums in very quick succession and then allowing yourself to have some more time to breathe and refine your craft a lot more can be very good for a band. And it's not like the band members involved weren't just sitting around not doing anything in the years since. In fact, the lead singer, Andy Biersack, released an album called The Shadow Side under his pseudonym Andy Black, and it was relatively well received. It featured a lot of feature work from Gerard Way, Ashton Irwin, and other people in the writing process. And I feel like a lot of that sort of musical influence and musical feeling sort of seeped into this album, and you can tell that the most in the song When They Call My Name, which feels like something directly ripped from The Shadow Side, and not gonna lie, when I first heard it, because it was sort of released as a promotional single, I wasn't really sure how to feel. Black Veil Brides isn't a stranger to slower-paced songs or songs that have a lot of almost alternative pop similarities and influences, but for what their self-titled album was, and sort of overall just harder feeling that it promoted since Wretched and Divine, and perhaps even compared to Set the World on Fire, it felt so weird to feel this as a song that, again, was made to be a promotional single, something to sort of set the tone for the eventual album when it came out. It was a little jarring. It's not a bad song, it's just sort of, I gotta admit, it sort of falls under the line of there are much better songs on this album, and this one can sort of be thrown in the bin, almost. Not sure why they really put this on here. Again, it feels very Andy Black-esque, and perhaps it was meant to be released as a song under that name. Who really knows? That's the feeling that I get, but I'm not a band member or any of the producers involved, so what do I know? The instrumentals themselves, especially from the always confident drummer Christian Coma, they do feel very Black Veil Brides-esque, but there is another track on the album, in fact the closing track and sort of the title one as well, Vale, This Is Where It Ends, that left me, I'll just say, utterly disappointed. It feels like, again, they're going this more softer track, which isn't an attitude throughout the entire release, but it is one that was explored in these two songs here, and more so in the outro track. And it left me very disappointed, because with closing tracks from previous albums, it just doesn't stand up whatsoever. Now that I think about it, I feel like the biggest problem with the Vale, This Is Where It Ends, is it sort of feels like When They Call My Name, but a part two. And that's something that's found all throughout this album. Vale, for as much as I enjoy it, especially with the eventual score I'm going to give to this album. I'm stuttering so much, I apologize. It feels like it's a lot of part twos, a lot of demos, and a lot of rough drafts that sometimes sound very good, but other times very much fall flat. Songs such as the last one, it feels like an anthem rock song, sort of in tune with Legacy, a little bit of In the End, and of course Set the World on Fire's title track. It feels very anthemic, meant to be performed, and this is almost forced feeling that kind of comes off. Their image is very much something that also plays into this, and I feel like, what was this called again? The last one, I had a lapse of memory there. It feels like this is sort of a very formulaic record, and it's kind of made me realize that Black Veil Brides, for the relatively enjoyable music they produce, they very much do follow a sort of formula. Put in some anthem rock songs, put in a couple softer songs, not as many as the anthems, but enough, and then put in some filler content that has genuine musical talent behind them. And they aren't the first band to do this, they aren't the last one, they especially aren't the only band to do this. within my own scope of music even, just in 2018. It's a thing that's always going to happen, but Black Veil Brides feels very blatant when they do this, and just overall this album feels like they're not really hiding it as much anymore, trying to make it come off as genuine. It does really feel like the formula has been found out, and if they're just like, yeah, it's a thing, deal with it. Going back to the last one for a moment, the instrumentals here are fantastic. It has some of the strongest bass here, but Andy himself sort of falls very flat. I've been using that term a lot, especially in my reviews more recently, and it's a term I wish I could stop using, but there's no other real way to describe it. Andy Biersack is just sort of not performing as well as everybody else on this album here. Again, the bass here is the strongest on the last one, but this is also the best record for the bass parts of the song here. If you ever felt like they were not implemented as much, or they just didn't have as much as a starring role on the albums, this is the one that should both change your mind and sort of bring to light that Black Veil Brides does have a lot of very amazing bass parts. I'd love to talk more about this review. In fact, I have almost a whole other half a page of stuff that I've written for this review, but I think I can sum it up in a couple of sentences with very light revelations here. Hey, Revelations, this is a song by Black Veil Brides. This album, it was kind of meant as a spiritual successor to Wretched and Divine, both in the obvious album cover choice and the overall songs. And while Wretched and Divine was a very good concept album, I feel like Black Veil Brides really made an unfortunate mistake in not going the full route of making this a concept album. You see so many hints of it. Again, the album artwork, it just has so many visual elements and an overall vibe and feeling throughout the album feels like a sequel to Wretched and Divine. In fact, the music video for Wake Up, their lead single, which I can sum Wake Up in a couple words really quickly. It's, in the end, it's Knives and Pens, it's Set the World on Fire, and it's Heart of Fire. It's Knives and Pens Part 5, basically. But the thing with just this band overall, again, going back to Wake Up, it tries to sort of continue the story from Wretched and Divine in its music video by trying to allow, it's like, Andy, who represented the Prophet back on Wretched and Divine, is now on trial. But it's just that one music video. I mean, right now, it's June when I'm reviewing this album, and maybe they're producing another music video, maybe they're doing something else to sort of continue the concept and actually put some more storytelling elements into this, but with so many musical moments, especially times like Overture Part 2 or Vale, This Is Where It Ends, it feels like they wanted to go a conceptual album route here, but they didn't, and the music suffers from this. You hear so many elements of it throughout the album, from the last one to When They Call My Name to the other tracks I can't remember off the top of my head, and I don't want to Google it because my internet is very slow right now. So many times throughout this album, it feels like missed mark after missed mark, and that kind of sucks. All in all, Andy Biersack, this is not the album you want to go to if you're a big fan of him and you want to sort of show other people why you enjoy him or why he is such a truly talented vocalist despite what the overall music scene might think of him. If you want some great moments from Jake Pitts or Ashley Purdy, songs like The Outsider or the last one are fantastic moments, and I put them among their best songs in the band's discography. But all in all, Vale just attempts to become a spiritual successor, but ends up being a pale imitation of the album before, and for that it gets a sort of admittedly painful rating I have to give the album, because I want to rate it further. I enjoy the album more from a fan perspective than a critic's perspective here, but let's get into the rating here. Black Veil Brides' new album, Vale, is getting a 6.8 out of 10. The other members of the band say this from being in just overall bland experience with exceptional musicianship, but all the elements together sort of create a meh experience, and that's the album. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Do you disagree with what I said? Do you think that Black Veil Brides is just a cringy band that should have broken up years ago? Let me know down in the comment section. Don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, unsubscribe, share, Instagram it, retweet it, tout it. Don't forget to unsubscribe. See you in the next video.